Preparing for this hearing is I'm telling you, it's hard to keep your cool in preparing for this meeting. And let me tell you the heart of why we're here today. Immigration, Customs Enforcement. I have met with the men and women who work there, the wonderful, hard-working, dedicated people who do a hard and difficult job. But I got to tell you, what's going on at Homeland Security, what's going on with Immigration Customs Enforcement is one of the most infuriating things I think I've seen in this government yet. In a 3-year period, Immigration and Customs Enforcement has released more than 86,000 criminal aliens into the American public. These are people that were here illegally, got caught committing a crime, were convicted of that crime, and then instead of deporting them, they were just released back out in the United States of America. All told, they had more than 231,000 crimes that they were convicted of. 86,000 of these people. In 2015, 196 of these people were convicted of homicide, and ICE released them back into the public rather than deporting them. 124 of those that were released between fiscal year 2010 and 2015 went on to commit homicide. Let me give you some other stats. In 2013, ICE released 36,007 criminal aliens who were here unlawfully and present in the United States. As of September 2014, 5,700 of those individuals went on to commit additional crimes. In March of 2015, ICE Director Sarah Saldana testified before this committee that during fiscal year 2014, ICE released another 30,000 individuals with criminal convictions. In fact, ICE released 30,558 criminal aliens in 2014 who had a combined 79,059 convictions instead of deporting them. Of those 30,558 criminal aliens, 1,895 were charged with another crime following their release. Their convictions included sex offenses, assault, burglary, robbery, driving under the influence. And ICE told us that in 2015, the agency released 19,723 criminal aliens with a combined 64,197 convictions, including 934 sex offenses, 804 robberies, 216 kidnappings, and 196 homicide-related convictions. And that's on your watch. They were here illegally, they got caught committing a crime, they were convicted of the crime, and instead of following the law and deporting them, you release them back out of the public and they commit more crimes. How do you look those people in the eye? How do you go back to a family and say, you know, they were in our detention and we just thought it would be better to let them out into the United States of America? That is so wholly unacceptable. I want to show you this football stadium. This is Notre Dame football stadium. You've released more people that were convicted of crimes that should have been deported than you can fit into that stadium. You'd still have people waiting outside the line. Those are the criminals that you released instead of deporting. Now, one of the people that's very passionate about this issue and has spent a lot of time on that is our colleague, Mr. DeSantis of Florida. I'd like to yield time to him.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, we in this country, the government at all levels has a responsibility to protect the safety of the American people. For the federal government, most of the crimes that are committed, particularly violent crimes, are handled at the state level. And I wish we could prevent every crime from happening. I wish we could. But the fact of the matter is we rely on deterrence, we rely on penalties to prevent people from even trying to commit crimes in certain instances. But in this case, this is an example of where government could have prevented all of these crimes. You have somebody, and the story that came out I thought was just shocking, where between fiscal year 2010 and February of 2015, there were 124 individuals who were in the country illegally, had been previously detained by ICE, and were released that were charged with homicide. You look at the number of convictions that we've seen for people who have been released by ICE even after being convicted of rape, of homicide, of domestic violence, violence against women, other sex offenses. This is putting the American people at risk. Something is wrong. Something needs to change. We've tried to highlight this over and over again. We get the numbers of convictions finally given to us for 15, and it's startling because we're told that, oh, we're going to focus on really getting these criminals, but yet you have criminals in your possession, don't have a right to be here, they should be returned to their home country, and yet they're released into American society, and then they reoffend. So, Mr. Chairman, I thank you for having this hearing. This is immensely, immensely frustrating issue to see this because some of these crime victims, the families, you can say to them, had the federal government simply done its job, maybe your loved one would be here today. I yield back.
Thank the gentleman. Director Saldana, who's about to testify before us, has testified before. She said, quote, "We welcome any amount of money that we have. We can always do more with more resources. We are just doing the best we can with the resources we have right now," end quote. Except in June of 2015, Department of Homeland Security leadership took $113 million from ICE's enforcement budget and asked Congress to reprogram it to other DHS components with no role in immigration enforcement. Further, in the latest budget justification, Homeland Security seeks $185 million less for deportation and transportation. Despite a mandate in the law requiring ICE to maintain 34,000 detention beds, ICE only wants funding for 30,913. The administration's failure to secure our border, enforce immigration laws, and hold criminal aliens accountable creates an ongoing threat to our public safety and sometimes delays consequences for innocent Americans. And many of those losses are preventable. The numbers became real in February of 2015 in the National Security Subcommittee hearing. During the hearing, we heard testimony from Mr. Jamil Shah, whose 17-year-old son was murdered by Pedro Espinoza, an alien living in the United States illegally. Mr. Espinoza had been released from jail on a conviction for brandishing a weapon before the Shah slaying. This is a weapons conviction. We also heard from Mike Roenbeck, the uncle of Grant Roenbeck. Grant was 21 years old when he was killed in Mesa, Arizona while working an overnight shift at a local convenience store. Guy's just working at the convenience store late at night, trying to do the right thing. The alleged killer was in removal proceedings due to a burglary conviction, but released on ICE on a $10,000 bond. Grant was killed. The Roenbeck and Shaw families are not the only victims of crimes committed by aliens unlawfully present in the United States. Today, we continue to put names and faces with individuals whose lives were changed forever by the death of a family member killed by a convicted criminal alien. The common thread among these stories we're about to hear today is that each of them were preventable. If ICE had only followed the law, it is highly likely that these witnesses would not be sitting here today grieving the loss of another loved one. And I thank the family members that will be joining us on the second panel. They are heart-wrenching stories, and it was preventable. It didn't have to happen. You could have deported them, and you chose not to. And it's just infuriating. My time's expired. Let me recognize the ranking member, Mr. Cummings, for his opening statement.
Thank you very much.